specialising British car brand that was created by Rover in the late 1940s, becoming its own brand independent of Rover in 1978, under Leyland control, to being owned by BMW, then Ford, to finally the Tata Group in 2008. It was developed Land Rover into the upmarket SUV brand with a portfolio of 7 high-end vehicles that it is today. Its history started in 1948 with the Series 1. Designed and developed by Maurice Wilkes in Anglesey, North Wales, the original Land Rover was inspired by the World War II Jeeps, with Rover wanting to add an off-road vehicle to its portfolio that could be used for farming and light industrial use. The production model was largely dictated by post-World War material reserves in Britain. This includes aluminium construction for the body, as steel was in short supply, as well as early models being painted in pale green due to surplus supplies of aircraft cockpit paint supplied by the military. Initially, only offered with a 50 horsepower, 1.6 litre petrol engine, this was upgraded to 2 litres in 1950, with a diesel being added in 1957. In 1954, a long wheelbase version was offered, being available with 4 doors from 1956, the world's first 4-door, 4-wheel drive car. Long wheelbase Series 1 Land Rovers could seat up to 10 people, more than most similar sized minibuses at the time. 1958 saw the launch of the Series 2, very similar in design, but both wider and taller than the Series 1. It also came with the option of the 2.25 litre petrol engine. From 1962 to 1974, it could be had in forward control spec, with the cab positioned over the engine to increase load space. This was the first Land Rover to come with a 2.6 litre 6-cylinder engine. 1971 saw the Series 3 hit the market. It's very similar to the Series 2, but featured a redesigned front end, with later models coming with the option of the 3.5 litre V8. 1970 saw the launch of the first Range Rover. The Rover company had been under Leyland control since 1967, and they wanted to expand the Land Rover lineup, with the Range Rover being offered as a more road-focused, more luxurious model. Launched as a car for all reasons, it had seating for 5, a top speed of roughly 100 miles an hour, a 3.5-tonne towing limit, all-round disc brakes, and huge off-road ability. Initially, it was only offered as a 3-door model, with the Rover V8, but from 1981, the Range Rover could be had as a 5-door model, and from 1986, could be had with a 4-cylinder turbo diesel. 1978 saw Land Rover become its own brand, independent of the Rover company. 1983 saw the introduction of the Land Rover Defender, the follow-on from the original series models. It stayed in production until 2016. Over that time, it was fitted with various 4 and 5-cylinder diesel engines and 4 or 6-cylinder petrol engines, with top-spec models being fitted with Rover V8s. The Defender and series models had a 68-year production run, one of the longest of any car designs in history. In 2018, to celebrate 70 years since the launch of the series models, Land Rover released a limited run of 150 Defenders fitted with a 400 horsepower, 5 litre Jaguar V8. They could hit 60 in 5.5 seconds and cost £150,000 each, with the customer having to supply a donor car, as the Defender was no longer in production at that time. 1989 saw the introduction of the Land Rover Discovery. Based on the first generation Range Rover, it was a lower price offering, aiming at families, sitting between the Defender and Range Rover in Land Rover's lineup. Unlike the more expensive Range Rover, it could be had with a 2 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, as well as 7 seats, thanks to a larger rear end and the spare wheel being positioned on the tailgate rather than under the boot floor. It could also be had as a van. In Japan, this model was sold as the Honda Crossroad. In 1994, the Rover Group, including Land Rover, was bought out by BMW. A few months later, Land Rover introduced the second generation of Range Rover, available with larger sized Rover V8s than the first generation, as well as a BMW-sourced 2.5 litre turbo diesel. 1997 saw the introduction of the Freelander, a more compact SUV to rival the Toyota RAV4. It came with a 2 litre turbo diesel, or a K-Series 1.8 litre petrol engine, with top-spec models coming with the same 2.5 litre V6 as the Rover 800. It was a hugely popular model, with 540,000 units being built over 9 years. It was Europe's best-selling 4-wheel drive vehicle for 5 consecutive years following its launch. 2006 saw the launch of the second generation Freelander, larger in size than the first generation. It was one of the first models to sit on Ford's new European Class D platform, a chassis shared with the Ford Mondeo and Volvo V70. From 2011, following 63 years of only building 4-wheel drive models, Land Rover offers the Freelander with 2-wheel drive. In the year 2000, the Rover Group is split up, with Land Rover being sold to Ford, who at this point already owned Jaguar. The first new model released under Ford ownership was the third generation Range Rover. It grew significantly in this generation and was a very luxurious model. It came available with many V8 petrol or diesel engines, as well as a BMW-sourced 6-cylinder turbo diesel. This was joined in 2005 by the slightly smaller, lower-cost Range Rover Sport, which was built to offer better driving dynamics and better on-road manners than other Land Rover models at the time. The Range Rover Sport was hugely popular and gained huge publicity from a long list of celebrity owners. This also helped the model to depreciate at a far slower rate than any competing premium SUV. 2004 saw the introduction of the Discovery 3. Confusingly, this was the second generation, with Discovery 1 and 2 making up the first generation. The 7-seat, family-orientated model was larger than its predecessor and weighed 2.5 tons. This was thanks to the complicated, integrated body frame setup that combined a monocoque build bolted onto a ladder frame chassis. This led to high running costs, as well as relatively low levels of performance from its V6 and V8 engines. The model was also criticised for poor reliability and high repair costs. The Discovery 4 of 2009 addressed most of the reliability issues and had a more powerful range of engines. It still remained expensive to run though, with the majority of owners choosing it for its strong towing ability as opposed to its family car credentials. In 2008, Ford sells Jaguar and Land Rover to Tata Motors of India. 2011 sees the release of the Land Rover Range Rover Evoque, a premium, compact SUV which essentially brought the Range Rover badge and design to a new range of customers, thanks to lower costs to both buy and run. It was a very appealing design and proved very popular, especially with younger customers. For many years, the Evoque had the highest resale value of any production car sold in Europe, with typical 3-year-old models worth 3/4 of their new purchase price. This was thanks to massive demand for the model. It came available with a range of 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol or diesel engines, initially as a 5-door SUV or 3-door coupe SUV. From 2017, for the final 2 years of the first generation, the Evoque could be had as a 4-seat convertible. 2012 saw the launch of the 4th generation Range Rover, a full 5 metres in length or 5.2 metres in long wheelbase form. It drops the steel body from the previous generation for an all-aluminium monocoque setup, which saves over 400 kilograms in weight. It's the first fully aluminium production 4x4. Over its 10-year life, it came available with a range of petrol and diesel engines, as well as a mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid option. At the top of the range, at the SV Autobiography model, which used a 560 horsepower, 5-litre supercharged V8. Despite its huge size, it could hit 60 in 4.3 seconds and topped out at 176 miles an hour. The Range Rover was followed in 2013 by the introduction of the second generation Range Rover Sport. It followed the principles set out by the first generation in being slightly smaller and lighter, with a lower roofline than a regular Range Rover. With a more dynamic drive, it was the first version of the Range Rover to come available with 7 seats. At the top of the range sat the SVR spec, with a 5-litre supercharged engine putting out 575 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque, enough to hit 60 in 4 seconds dead. 2014 saw the Freelander replaced by the Discovery Sport. Despite only being a slight bit bigger than the Freelander, the Discovery Sport could be had with 5 or 7 seats. It sat on the same chassis as the Range Rover Evoque, as well as parent company Tata's Harrier and Safari models in India. From 2017, the Discovery Sport was Land Rover's bestseller for many years. In 2019, second generations of both the Discovery Sport and Range Rover Evoque were released. The updated models used a new chassis that Land Rover called the Premium Transverse Architecture. The chassis was shared with the Jaguar E-Pace and could be fitted with either mild hybrid engines or plug-in hybrid technology. 2017 saw Land Rover introduce the Discovery 5. This generation had a softer, more rounded design in comparison to earlier models. It was largely influenced by Range Rovers at the time. It was also the first Discovery to be fitted with a 4-cylinder engine since the 1990s. As of 2019, the Discovery is only built in Slovakia. That, combined with poor reliability and an awkward rear-end design, means that unlike other Land Rover products, this Discovery generation has not been a sales success. 2017 also saw the introduction of the Range Rover Velar, a model to sit between the Evoque and Range Rover Sport in the Range Rover lineup. In 2018, it was crowned the world's most beautiful car in the World Car Awards. It shares many parts with the Jaguar F-Pace, and despite being set up with a focus towards on-road dynamics, the Velar is capable off-road and can tow up to 2.5 tons. Car and driver recorded the top-spec Velar SVA, doing 0 to 60 in just 3.8 seconds. 2020 saw the introduction of the all-new Land Rover Defender, a controversial model in the eyes of Land Rover purists. The new SUV uses a monocoque chassis and is available in 3 lengths, 90, 110 and 130 models. Available with up to 8 seats, as well as being specified as a commercial van, it comes available with a range of 4 and 6-cylinder engines with mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid options. At the top of the range sits a pair of V8 engines. The most powerful is found in the Defender Octa. It uses a BMW sourced twin-turbo 4.4 litre V8 that produces 630 horsepower. It costs £150,000 and has a top speed of 155 miles an hour and can hit 60 in 3.8 seconds. 2022 saw the launch of the 5th generation Range Rover, the biggest to date and available with 11 different engine options, including petrol, diesel, mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid options. With prices ranging from £96,000 to £250,000, the new Range Rover is easily the most expensive yet. This generation was launched at the same time as 3rd generation Range Rover Sport. At the top end of the range sits the Sport SV. Priced from £170,000, the model is the fastest Land Rover to date and one of the fastest SUVs in the world, with a 0 to 60 time of 3.6 seconds and a top speed of 180 miles an hour. In the car world, there are 2 types of SUVs, those that are Range Rovers and those that are not.